Next up will come just all my spells that are not creatures. The first few are just mana. Sol Ring and Orzhov Signet, Azorious Signet, and Darksteel Ingot. Cards like this in any kind of multiplayer deck, or even a single color deck, I recommend very highly. Mana Denial is a valid but jerkish kind of strategy that you will have to find ways around. Specifically when people play things like Contamination and Bad Moon, you do have to have other ways to cast your spells and your removal, so that way you can still survive. I touched on this earlier, but Tormod's Crypt and Relic of Progenitus I think belong in every EDH deck as well. You can never ever underestimate an opponent's ability to abuse their graveyard, and you have to have answers for it. Orrery, insanely strong. Once again, almost never mulligan a hand with an Orrery in play, or in my hand. Being able to do draw, go, and then do everything that you need to do based off your opponent's move. Being reactive is a very solid kind of strategy in any kind of control deck. It works well in other decks as well, but in a deck primarily running control, excellent strategy. Sensei's Divine Top, just another all-inclusive kind of card in any deck. Helps you manipulate the top of your deck and things like that. Crucible of Worlds, now that it's not banned, it is a very strong card, although abusable. I don't strip mine Crucible of Worlds ever. It's kind of rude. But at the same time, it's very good to be able to get back something like your Academy Ruins or your bounce lands that get destroyed early on in the game, or your fetch lands, and be able to tutor out all your lands and just filter through your deck so you can start getting to your strong cards. Sword of Light and Shadow, I think, is the best evasion artifact or utility artifact for creatures. Fire and Ice is also very strong, but if you're already playing a deck such as this where there's a lot of card draw, which you'll see soon, card draw and a couple extra damage isn't going to get you there, but being able to get your creatures back and getting your life back up to someplace. And of course, the strongest removal in EDH is white and black, and so this right here is the best card if you want to keep your creatures alive. Nevinyrral's Disc, just a really great board wipe. A couple of my multicolor cards, there's only a few in here. Esper Charm, it's really good for destroying this pesky Bitter Blossoms and Mana Reflections, and of course drawing cards early on if you don't have what you need. Mortify and then Vindicate, once again, just great removal spells. Spot removal is very important in EDH, but you don't want too much. Mass removal seems to work a lot better as long as you play it right. Liliana Vess, most of the Planeswalkers in your colors are going to be great, except maybe a Johnny Goldmane. He's the only one I never recommend. But at the same time, Liliana's great. That's my Japanese foil one. Just, it's great for getting them to discard a couple cards, and if you're already running your graveyard removal or your graveyard recursion, like your Puppeteer Clique, it's awesome early, even if you don't go ultimate with her. But then also, having something that can tutor multiple times is excellent. Card draw is also very important for Phyrexian Arena. Yes, you lose a couple life here and there, but at the same time, being able to draw more cards than your opponent can definitely give you an edge in any EDH game or any Magic game. Graveyard removal, I don't have a lot in this deck because I don't have a lot of creatures or graveyard recursion, but Makeshift Mannequin is very strong. Getting an instant speed Angel of Despair or Archon of Justice and being able to block and then remove something is very strong. And then, of course, Damnation for removal. Profane Command is great for getting a creature back or swinging through one last time with a couple of your fatties to finish off your opponent. Tutors, like Vampiric Tutor, it's awesome to be able to tutor at instant speed, and also Demonic Tutor, just being able to get anything you need out of your library. Since every game seems to be different when you play EDH, having the option to get many different things out of your deck at different times to be reactive to your opponents, excellent strategy. Condemn is one of the best general removal spells. Just putting it on the bottom of the library so they can't tutor it up again, or just get it right back out of the command zone. And of course, things like Swords to Plowshares and Path to Exile. One-shot removal helps a lot, especially against the faster generals. Wrath of God speaks for itself. Chroma's Vengeance, once again, just mass board wipe. Planet Cleansing, underestimated as well. Great card. Austere Command can be essential in any deck where you have a lot of permanents, specifically for things when you don't have so many creatures, but you need to wipe just a couple types of creatures. Sen Triplets is a pretty good example. You need to kill like the weenie creatures and their enchantments that are kind of pesky, but you don't want your triplets to die. Austere Command is a great way to do that. And of course, my favorite, Hallowed Burial. Excellent reset to the board whenever you're behind, which happens a lot when you play a control deck. Return to Dust, one of the best artifact and enchantment removal spells in the format. And Momentary Blink, once again, speaks for itself with things with coming to play abilities like your Shriek Maws, your Mold Drifters, and your Angel of Despairs. Being able to get them back a couple times, or even your Venser, excellent. Enlightened Tutor. Once again, being able to tutor up something like a Triplets that was condemned, or get your Bojuka Bog or your like a Bitter Blossom or whatnot. Pretty amazing. Elspeth can win games by herself. Auto-include in every white EDH deck. If you go with her ultimate, you can wipe the board all day long and not have to worry about it. Only have 3 or 4 counter spells. Hinder is one of the better ones, once again, because in this format you're playing against generals and they can always cast them again, so putting them on the bottom of the library is great. And then, of course, Pact of Negation, which I chose over Force of Will simply because it was foil, and this deck is entirely foil. But Pact of Negation, great card, counterspell for free and pay for it later. Cryptic Command, not as strong as it is in Extended, but still at the same time, being able to counter and draw a card or bounce something is awesome. One of the most fun cards to play when you're doing Plane Chase and you're on Glimmer Void and you have to copy the spell for every legal target, because your modes stay the same, so you choose draw a card and bounce a permanent. You bounce everything, fill your hand up, play a Reliquary Tower, and just giggle. That happened last week. Celestial Vision, good turn 1 draw card spell. Mind Spring, I choose this over like Jace's Ingenuity and whatnot, just because if you do happen to draw it late game, which games go pretty late in EDH a lot, it's much better to be able to draw 5, 6, or 7 cards instead of just 3 at instant speed. Same thing as over like Opportunity. Tidings, once again, just being able to draw 4 cards for 5 mana is pretty good. Mystical Tutor, once again, it's only made in the deck because they printed a foil version of it, but being able to get whatever removal spell you need at instant speed is amazing. Jace Beleren, awesome for drawing cards or milling out your opponent a little bit, but mostly he's kind of there as like a Mole Drifter substitute. You can drop him on turn 2, turn 3, and just pick up a couple extra cards to give you the edge. So, Capsize with Buyback. That's just what it should read right there. It should always be bought back unless you're in a most desperate situation. It's like having a recurable removal spell, and it works great with your coming to play creatures. And let's see here. My last 2 cards, these are some of my absolute favorites, but they don't get played as often as they should, and definitely don't get the credit they deserve. Rite of Replication is insane against any deck with creatures that have come into play abilities, specifically hitting their Eternal Witness 5 times, or Angel's Spare 5 times, or something that puts in tokens. Fantastic. And then my favorite, Treachery, which has won me more games than I can count against things like Rofellos when he's in play, just to shut him down, or against like Mimnarch and you start taking their artifacts. Unbelievable card. That's pretty much it. In a nutshell, the deck is just very control, and it's very much fun to play. But every card has a specific reason for it, and I rarely change out anything that's in the deck at all. Thanks for watching CMDR Decks. Please subscribe and favorite.